All right, so let's dive into something that's been all over the headlines lately.
Yeah.
This cybersecurity incident with the US Treasury.
Big one.
You've probably seen hack everywhere.
Yeah.
But we're going to go deeper than that.
Way deeper.
What happened?
Why it matters.
The big question.
And what it tells us about where things are headed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to really get a feel for how people are reacting,
Yeah.
we're going right to the source.
Where did you go?
Reddit. Oh, Reddit! That's where it's at these days.
Makes sense.
They've got threads from all over.
Like,
Our World News.
of course.
Wall Street Bets.
Naturally.
Like
China
news,
News. And even Ver News.
So a good mix.
Yeah. A real cross-section of how people are thinking about this.
Which I'm sure is all over the place.
Oh, yeah. Opinions flying everywhere.
Yeah. Before we get to that, though,
Okay.
can we just lay out what we know?
Absolutely.
Like what actually happened in this breach?
So,
Back on December 8th,
December 8th,
Chinese hackers, they got into workstations at the US Treasury.
they did.
And the way they did it,
Yeah, this is interesting.
it was through this third-party software
Exactly.
called BeyondTrust,
BeyondTrust.
which the Treasury was using for, like, tech
Yeah.
support.
Basically.
BeyondTrust, huh?
I know, right?
Kind of ironic given the situation,
Yeah, the irony is not lost on people, let me tell you.
especially on Reddit, I bet.
Especially on Reddit.
I can only imagine.
They were all over that.
But it does raise a good point.
It did.
Even organizations that are supposed to be experts
Right.
on cybersecurity,
The best of the best.
they can still become victims.
It happens.
And this whole thing,
Right.
it's really got people talking
It has.
about the risk of using these third-party apps,
Big time.
especially for something as important as the government.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So
Right.
they got in
Through BeyondTrust.
through that vulnerability.
What did they actually get access to, though?
So that's the big question.
Yeah, like what kind of information are we talking about here?
Well, the Treasury,
Yeah.
it holds a ton of sensitive data.
Sensitive.
Financial transactions, for one.
Okay.
Economic intelligence.
Right. The reports say the documents were unclassified.
That's what they're saying.
But does that mean they're not dangerous?
Not necessarily.
Ah.
Even information that seems boring
Yeah.
in the wrong hands,
Oh.
it can be very valuable.
So even unclassified stuff from the Treasury
Potentially.
could have some serious consequences.
And it could.
What are people most worried about?
A lot of things.
Right.
First, there's the economic impacts.
Right, yeah.
Folks,
Yeah.
especially on for Wall Street bets,
Those guys.
they actually see this as an opportunity.
Really?
Yeah.
How could a security breach be good for the markets?
Well, their logic is a bit cynical,
I can imagine.
but it goes like this.
Okay.
If the U.S. government has to print more money
Yeah.
to cover losses from this,
Makes sense.
that could lead to inflation.
Right.
And historically,
Yeah.
certain assets,
Right. Right.
stocks, real estate,
Okay.
they tend to do well when there's inflation.
So they're basically looking at this through
Their investment strategy.
interesting way to look at it.
It is.
But I'm guessing there are bigger economic worries too.
There are definitely bigger concerns.
Okay.
People are worried about the dollar losing value,
Makes sense.
the impact on U.S. debt
Oh, yeah.
held by China,
Hmm.
Japan,
Right.
even the stability of the whole global financial system.
Wow.
This might seem like an isolated incident,
Yeah.
but it could have ripple effects everywhere.
So we've got potential market chaos,
Potentially.
global economic instability,
Yeah.
and then there's the national security angle.
Right.
That's where a lot of the anxiety seems to be coming from.
Understandably so.
Yeah.
This raises serious questions
Yeah.
about how vulnerable our infrastructure is.
To foreign attacks.
Exactly.
And how do we even respond to something like this?
That's the million-dollar question.
In a way that actually prevents it from happening again.
Right.
You look at Reddit,
Yeah.
you see everything from like total panic to whatever, this is normal.
It's a full spectrum.
It really shows you the anxieties we all have
It does.
living in this digital world.
It's a new world out there.
Okay, so
Okay.
we've got economic worries,
Uh-huh.
national security worries,
Yep.
and just a whole lot of emotions.
Lots of emotions.
I'm really curious to hear what people are actually saying.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's dig into those Reddit threads, see
Mm.
how people are processing all this.
It's fascinating stuff.
It is.
It really is.
It's wild to see how one event can bring out so many different reactions.
It is.
Like, you've got people saying this is an act of war,
Mhm.
and others are like, this is just normal spy stuff.
Yeah, you see that a lot.
What do you make of those takes?
Well, it's important to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Cyber attacks aren't all the same. This one definitely raises red flags.
It does.
But saying it's an act of war
That's a big jump.
It's a really complicated issue.
Yeah, legally and politically.
Exactly.
It depends on a lot of things.
Like what the intent was, how big the attack was,
Right.
and if it caused any real-world harm.
So it's not as simple as just reading a headline.
Definitely not.
You have to really look at the specifics.
The nuances?
One thing I saw a lot people comparing this to the Trump classified documents thing.
Interesting connection.
What do you think of that?
I think both situations.
Yeah.
They show how vulnerable the U.S. is.
In different ways, though.
Exactly.
Trump was about physical security,
right?
handling sensitive info.
Old school.
But this Treasury breach,
So that's all digital.
it's like these two things.
Yeah.
They're unrelated on the surface,
Mm-hmm.
but they both point to a bigger problem.
A systemic issue.
Exactly.
And speaking of systemic issues,
Oh, yeah.
a lot of the talk on Reddit,
Mm-hmm.
it's about contractors.
In government IT,
Yep.
people are not happy about that.
There's a lot of distrust there.
Makes sense.
When you're relying on other companies' software,
Yeah.
especially for critical stuff.
Like government systems.
Exactly.
You're putting a lot of faith in them.
You are.
And this incident shows
Yeah.
that faith can be misplaced.
It can.
So what do we do about it?
That's the big question, isn't
Yeah,
it?
what are some of the solutions people are talking about?
Well, one thing that comes up a lot
Yeah,
is investing more in cybersecurity.
makes sense.
People are pointing out
Mm.
U.S. spends a ton on the military.
Yeah, traditional defense,
Right.
but not nearly enough on protecting our digital stuff.
And it's not just the government
Oh.
businesses, too,
It's like we haven't quite caught up.
to how much we rely on these systems.
It's all digital now.
Pretty much.
Another idea I've seen, stronger regulations
Yeah.
for these government contractors.
Especially the ones handling sensitive data.
More audits, definitely. Tougher penalties for breaches.
Absolutely.
And more transparency.
People want to know what's going on.
It seems like everyone's realizing
Yeah.
cybersecurity can't be an afterthought.
It has to be built in from the start,
Right into our systems.
from the ground up.
But it's not all on the government and corporations.
No, it's not.
Individuals have a role to play too.
Big time.
What can everyday people do to protect themselves?
A lot, actually.
Right.
Strong passwords,
Always a good one.
multi-factor authentication,
Right.
being careful about phishing scams.
Those are getting really sophisticated.
They are.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all this,
It is.
with all the news about breaches and hacks.
It's a lot.
But reading these Reddit threads,
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of encouraged.
Really?
It seems like people are starting to get it.
They're waking up.
They're asking the right questions,
Mm-hmm.
demanding better security,
Yes,
and holding people accountable.
that's what we need.
That's where I find hope in all this.
Me too.
This Treasury hack,
Yeah.
it's bad,
No doubt.
but it's also sparked this conversation.
A much-needed conversation.
About cybersecurity.
And the role we all play in it.
I think that's a great segue
It is.
to the last part of our deep dive.
Let's do it.
We've covered a lot,
We have.
technical stuff,
Mm-hmm.
economic impacts, national security.
Huh?
But now I want to step back.
Okay.
Look at the bigger picture.
The philosophical side of things.
Yeah, the ethical questions this all raises.
The whole other layer.
Reading through these Reddit threads,
Yeah.
I keep thinking about this idea of a cyber warfare landscape.
It's a good way to put it.
It's like we're all in it,
We are.
but it's invisible.
A silent war.
And the stakes are huge.
Absolutely huge.
So how do we even stop these attacks from happening?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
Some people are saying
Yeah.
we need to hit back hard.
Fight fire with fire.
But is that really the answer?
It's tricky.
Yeah.
Cyber attacks are different.
How so?
If you retaliate,
Mm-hmm.
you risk things escalating.
Out of control.
Exactly.
And even if we know for sure who did it.
Which isn't always easy.
Right.
What's the right response?
Yeah.
What message are we trying to send?
And what if we accidentally make things worse?
Unintended consequences.
It's like we don't even have the rules figured out yet
We're still writing the playbook.
for this whole new kind of war.
A digital war.
And then there's the whole surveillance question.
Right.
Some people say we need more surveillance to catch these guys,
To stay ahead of the game.
but others are worried about privacy.
Big Brother and all that.
It's a tough balance.
It is.
Security versus freedom.
The classic dilemma.
There was this one comment.
Oh, yeah.
It said, imagine if America used 1% of their military budget on cybersecurity.
I saw that one.
Makes you think.
It does.
All that money we spend on tanks and planes,
Yeah.
maybe we should be putting some of it towards our digital defenses.
It's a different kind of battlefield now.
It really is.
The lines are blurred.
Between the physical and digital,
Everything's connected.
it feels like we're at a turning point.
I think we are.
This Treasury breach.
Yeah.
It's a wake-up call.
Big time.
And those Reddit threads,
What about them?
they show that people are starting to think about this stuff,
You're having the conversation.
which is a good thing.
It is.
We need to talk about these issues.
Absolutely.
Figure out where we stand
What our values are
and how we're going to move forward.
in this new world.
A world where cybersecurity and freedom are both essential.
That's the goal.
Well said.
Thanks.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive.
Another one down.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We did.
From the technical nitty-gritty to
Uh-huh.
the economic fallout,
Yep.
the national security threats, and the big ethical questions.
The stuff that keeps you up at night.
It's complicated stuff.
It is.
No easy answers.
Definitely not.
But I think that's why it's so important to talk about it.
Exactly.
Keep learning.
And asking questions.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And remember,
Yeah.
stay curious,
Always.
stay informed,
Stay sharp.
and stay engaged.
The world needs it.
We'll see you next time on the deep dive.
See you then.